Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share with you some of the features that I absolutely love in Logic Pro and that have changed the way I work, and hopefully they can help you and they can help you speed up your workflow and get better results from this great program. The first tip I'm going to start with today are called arrangement markers. These markers will allow you to be able to rearrange a track really quickly, including all your automation, even your bus automation. As long as it's in your arrangement, it will move everything and it will cut everything really clean and very quickly. Let me show you. So normally if I wanted to add another 8 bars after this loop here, in between this section and that section, I probably would do something like this. Chop it, go back to 8 bars, say yes, move it all, highlight all of this, and then copy it across, drop it in there and say copy, and then hope that that all would work. I say hope that would work because the bigger the arrangement, the more likely you are that you're going to either not see something or not highlight it or not copy it across, or you might have an empty channel. So for instance, here I've got a reverb bus, and that reverb bus has got automation in that verse, but I've now added a verse. So really I need to move that same automation across again so that it pushes the rest of the automation with the track like how it should be. Well, in this particular case, it hasn't. So that chorus automation that should sit here is actually now sitting here because I've not moved it across. So there's ways around that, but I'm not going to confuse the issue here. All these problems get avoided if you use arrangement markers. First, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to global tracks up here, and we're going to try and find something that's called arrangement. If yours doesn't say arrangement in there, you can do control and click and get arrangement in there like that, or right click and that brings you to that little drop down menu anyway. So I'm going to remove the others because we don't need them, just for confusion, just take them out, and then I'm going to enlarge that so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, first I'm going to put the markers in and lay out the track. So first we're going to put that there, and I'm going to call that rename silence. Click another one, and each marker that it creates is 8 bars, so this is a pretty quick process. So once we've done that, that now means that all those are connected to the regions that are down below. So if I was to say, okay, well, I want another pre-chorus from here, holding down Option, I could then say, well, I want another pre-chorus just before this chorus here. Boom, that's it, done. And it's copied straight away. It's copied all the automation. It copies across the bus automation as well. It kicks everything along quite easily. If I said, you know what, I actually don't want that section, you delete it. If you don't want to write anything else in there and completely delete it, you can just delete that out there. Or if you said, you know, I don't want a double verse here, delete that. It takes out the content, and then you can either copy a new one manually in here. You could say, well, you know what, I want the first half of that there instead. You can still do all of that. Or you say, no, I totally want to remove it, and you totally remove it. And then finally, if there were any changes you wanted to do here, but you wouldn't want that to affect your regions down below, you can click on arrangements and say suspend content connection, which basically means that these markers are not connected to your regions. But I don't see a reason why you would need to, because if you wanted to move any boxes, you do that anyway, and they don't affect your markers at all. If you ask me what my favorite feature of Logic Pro was, that's probably it. It makes arrangements so fast and so seamless. I use it all the time. And the great thing is you can do this right at the end of a mix. Sometimes when you copy it, you do have to move some of the transition points and have to have a look at those, but that's minor work compared to such a big edit that you can do so quickly. This next one is importing another Logic project and then being able to take stuff from it that you need in your current project. What you do is you go to File and you go to Import and you go to Logic Projects. And what that does is it will then ask you which project do you want to import. So you say, okay, well, this one, I did this last year, August, I think, and then bam, that is then that Logic project that you're then looking at. So you can then say, okay, well, you know, I just want to look at the instruments that I had. So those are all the instruments that you had. So I now say, well, you know what, I really love that muted bass sound that I had in there. So what I want from that is I want the content. So you click content and you might say, well, I want from that as well, I want the plugins from that. And then, yeah, you might want some automation from it or something. And then you say, okay, we'll add that. And then that imports that part directly into your current arrangement. You can then edit that, and that will all be exactly as it was, and it will bring it in. It will even bring in the level of the volume. It will bring in any panning that you had, or it will even bring in what bus you had. Or you could say, well, I want the auxiliary. I really love the way I had my reverb lined up on the auxiliary channel. You could then say, well, I want the plugins, say for instance, I don't want the in and out on this, I just want the channel in there, and then you go add, and that has then added that into my environment right here, and that is then that bus. So you can then assign other things to that bus and get the same reverb effect as you did on that particular track. And that brings us on to number 3. This is FlexTime Audio Quantize, and it allows you to quantize your audio files. This is especially useful for live instrumentation that you've recorded, say a bass or a guitar, but you can also use it on your loops, like your drum loops. If you get a hip hop loop that's quite loose, but you want it to sit tight, then you can just apply this function and get it to sit tight with your project. Let me show you. For those guitar players out there, I intentionally played that out of time, of course. Yes, definitely ropey. So with the region highlighted, we go over to Flex, we go Flex Rhythmic, we let it analyze, and then once it's analyzed, we can then go up to Quantize in here and say, right, 16ths. So you can clearly hear that that's put it bang in time. If anything, it's a little bit too bang in time compared to the track. So just delay it a little bit. If you double click on the file or press E and then click on show or hide flex time, it will show you exactly where each one of those transients has been pushed into the time onto the beat. The art of recording into a DAW is to make sure that things don't sound clinical and don't sound too tight, because you want it to sound real. So when we're putting this guitar onto my track, you can see that certain bits still sound out. And that will happen because I move my instrumentation around so that things start to sound real and alive. So I would still have to go in manually and just adjust certain timings of that guitar to sit tight. But at least it puts most of it roughly where it needs to be, and then we can just adjust it as we need to. And now on to the next one, and this one is track stacks. There's two types of track stacks, summing stack and a folder stack. First, we'll look at a folder stack. Say for instance, I've got my beats. If I right click on that or control click, if you then go to create stacks and you go to folder and then say create, then what it does is it puts all of those beats into a folder, which then allows you to control the mute, the solo, and the volume of those tracks as a group all together. But you can still go in and adjust your own levels internally, but you have an overall control over all of them. And then there's the summing stack, which in principle works the same. So you put your instruments together and you say, right, okay, I've got these two here, but what I'm going to do for the example is I'm going to add a new instrument just quickly, and I'm just going to select anything from over here, maybe get a piano. And then what you can then do is you can then select those three instruments, say, and right click or control click on that if you haven't got a right click, create a track stack, select summing. Then that summing track again looks the same as the folder stack, and you can mute, solo, and control the volume of those instruments at the same time. But with summing stack, you can play the instruments inside the stack all at the same time from your MIDI keyboard, like this. So as you can see, track stacks, very easy to set up, very useful. It cleans up your arrangement very quickly. You can almost create like a patch and play MIDI to 5 or 6 instruments all at the same time. Very handy. And also the beauty is that if you have got automation on those channels that are in the track stack will still control their overall volume. So it's another way of controlling channels regardless of what you're doing with the automation on those channels. And now we have number 5. This is converting audio melodies into MIDI notes. So this one really works for people that don't really play keyboards or can't find their notes quickly on a keyboard and then might lose the idea that they've got. So what you can do is you can quickly record a melody with your vocal and then convert that into MIDI. So first what you do is you set up a recording channel that you can record onto, you set your microphone up, you go into record and you record your melody. Da 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 da. Ba 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 da ba 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 ba. Da 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 da. Ba 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 ba. So if that's your melody and you're happy with that, something really silly, I know, but just bear with me. You select the file, you go to flex mode on the left, you select flex pitch, you let it analyze, and then you press E, and then as you can see, it's created a melody along with all the notes I've done. So I don't think I've sung it very well. Then you go to edit and you select create MIDI track from flex pitch data. And then it will create the melody here. So we mute the audio channel. Okay, so as you can see, some notes sometimes come out a little bit funky, but you can just adjust them, but most of it you capture, and especially if you sing a bit better, then that's great. You can use your guitar. If you play a guitar and you don't really know how to play keyboards, you can convert them. Remember, it only does solo notes, so it won't do chords, but if you know the notes of the chord and you really wanted to do chords as well, you could individually play each note and then convert them all one by one and join them back up. That is an option for you.